Hello and welcome to Creepypasta Readings with Beanie Bubber. Today we are reading S3K.ROM, written by R3T1X. On some random afternoon, I was killing time watching some random YouTube videos because I had nothing better to do. I was staring blankly at the video until I heard a Discord notification. One of my friends had sent me a link to a ROM of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I clicked on it, wondering why my friend sent it when I heard another Discord notification. It wasn't long a message or anything. They simply just said, "Dude, this shit is fucking weird. It's like a dumb ROM hack or something trying to be scary." Skull emoji, and immediately went offline. That got me interested. I wondered what kind of bullshit this ROM hack would pull. I went back to the site and downloaded the ROM. I opened up my Sega Genesis emulator and opened the ROM. The title screen showed up as normal. I studied it for a while just to see if anything was off, but it was all seemingly normal. I decided to move on to the save slot. That's when something odd happened. No matter how hard I tried, I was incapable of playing as Sonic. Eventually, after trying every save slot, I gave up and chose Tails. I went through Angel Island Zone Act 1 as I usually would. Somewhere in the level, I ended up clipping into a wall. Usually you could just hold a direction and you'd zip back out, but that didn't happen at all. Instead, I got teleported to an area with nothing but a straight line that went on for what seemed like forever. After a minute or so of running, the sprites started glitching out. When they stopped, Angel Island was on fire. Like after your first encounter with the mini-boss. I kept going. There was still no end in sight, not at least for another while. Eventually I reached a wall with a singular monitor. There is nothing on the monitor. It was just static. There wasn't a chance in hell I was going all the way back to the beginning to see if anything changed, so I broke the monitor. Immediately the game crashed with a line of text saying, "Illegal instruction," and a bunch of random letters and numbers. I reset the ROM and something was off. There was no Sega chant. There was no small intro of Sonic spin dashing before the title screen showed up. In fact, Sonic wasn't there at all, and there was no music. I went into the save slot and all the slots were corrupted except for the one I played on. Where there would have been a zone icon, there was just static, and the text that usually said Zone 1 just said, "He will pass." It was a little unsettling, but I was just some dumb wrong hack. Nothing bad was actually going to happen, so I selected the save. I was still in Angel Island Zone, but I was deep underwater, and it said I had 0 lives despite me having 3 when the game crashed, and the save button said I had 3. I shrugged it off as random bullshit. I couldn't find a platform out of the water, so I started swimming up. As I was swimming up, the drowning theme started playing, and every time the countdown went down, my surroundings would get darker. Just as it hit 0, I got out of the water. One more second and I would have drowned. At that point, everything around me was pitch black. I just ran forward until I ran into a random special stage ring. The sprites were glitched out and the color palette was absolutely fucked, but I had nowhere else to go, so I jumped in hoping it wouldn't crash the game. It didn't. I was in a special stage, but there was no spheres to be found. After a lot of aimless wandering, I just ran into the Chaos Emerald. The Tails got a Chaos Emerald screen didn't show up. However, I was simply thrown back into the level. Everything was back to normal. I could see my surroundings again. I was at the end of Angel Island Act 1. The goalpost was already there. It had already been spun, but it showed the Sonic variant. I was confused. I was playing as Tails. It should be the Tails variant. After a moment, the camera panned back to the normal start of Act 2. Except the second I moved over, I saw Sonic. I sat there confused, staring. His back was facing the camera, but I did notice one thing was off. His shoes were blue. Slowly, he started turning around and our surroundings started darkening. He was slowly looking less like he normally did with every sprite change. Once he had fully turned around, it felt like he wasn't even Sonic. He was way bigger with lanky limbs. His fur was a grayish purple color. His eyes were missing, and he had a gaping hole in his chest. He stared at the camera for a few seconds before suddenly lunging at Tails, causing yet another game crash with that same illegal instruction error. I once again restarted the emulator. The game simply sat on a black screen. After a pretty long while, the weird Sonic appeared. He just stared at the camera without doing anything. After what felt like ages, some small red text appeared that said, "Hello, player." I tried to press start, but nothing happened. I sat there waiting for something to happen when the red text changed. You are not safe. Sonic was smiling now. You do not know who I am, but I know you very well, ellipse, ellipse, ellipse. Sonic moved closer to the camera. Do you know who I am? He was even closer. After a few seconds, the sprites glitched out, glitchy graphics randomly showed up in the background, and a very annoying high-pitched sound played. Some larger white text appearing saying, I, ellipse, am, ellipse, death, ellipse. I heard a heavily bit-crushed cackling before I was forced into the save select screen. Once more, all save slots but one were corrupted, except this time the intact slot was an empty slot, the one I hadn't used before. I tried selecting Sonic. No luck. I tried selecting Tails. Still no luck. I could only choose Knuckles. When I did, the game didn't start in Angel Island. It started in Lava Reef. It was just regular old Act 1. At this point, I knew that normality wouldn't last long. I was ready for Sonic to show up again. Midway through the level, I noticed that all the bad works were gone. As I continued on, I also noticed the lacks of rings and monitors. I was near the end of the level when I ran into a blind jump that wasn't originally in the level. I jumped down at the bottom. There was a singular monitor filled with static. I broke it, and just like the last one, the game crashed with an illegal instruction. For it felt like the millionth time now, I restarted the emulator. It was a black screen. Red text appeared. Is it getting old? Sonic appeared with his back turned to the camera. I heard a faint laugh. It reminded me of Kekfa's laugh, but it was different. I was thrown back into the game, skipping the save select. I was in Hidden Palace now. I figured by now that it was likely I wouldn't play it out normally as it would. The level was just a straight line, but it nearly wasn't as long as the one I went through as Tails. At the end, I reached the area where you'd normally fight Knuckles as if you were playing Sonic or Tails. Sonic was standing there. Regular Sonic. Or at least I thought. It was until I saw the blue shoes. Sonic jumped at me. I jumped over him and then tried to attack him. When I did, he grabbed Knuckles. I no longer had control. I just sat there and watched Sonic slam Knuckles against the ground over and over. And then he paused, looked at the camera, and red text appeared. Poor Knuckles. You couldn't save him either. Ellipse, ellipse, ellipse. Sonic then turned into the weird Sonic I had seen multiple times now and started putting Knuckles into his mouth before the game crashed with an illegal instruction. When I restarted the emulator, I was in the Death Egg, in the area right before the final boss. I was playing as Sonic, the actual Sonic. When I ran forward, I saw the weird Sonic right behind a heavily corrupted Eggman sprite. I turned super and ran at the weird Sonic. He didn't do anything. I passed right by him. It was just a straight line, but then I heard a slightly corrupted drowning theme. He was chasing me. As he got closer, all the surrounding graphics glitched out and the red text appeared. You can't escape me. Everything stopped as Sonic caught up to me. I am inevitable. He smiled. After all, as I said before, he turned to face the camera. I, ellipse, am, ellipse, death, ellipse. He jumped at the camera, crashing the game. When I restarted the emulator, all I saw was big red text on a black screen saying, Sonic has passed. I couldn't play the game anymore. There was it. I sat there, staring at the text, kind of wishing there was more. After a few minutes it changed. And so will you. I heard crackling, but when it stopped I heard breathing behind me. Then I passed out, but never woke up.